So
absolutely
yeah, he
brilliant.
was, yeah, I miss him a lot. He was a good guy.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely. He was like gave me the time of day when he didn't have to, and mentored me through a couple of things. And actually, he was the very first ever author that I'd ever interviewed. When there again, I know I say this a lot, and I've said this about you too, Tom, where I was just some schmuck. I think at that point I had like one interview under my belt with some movie guy, and that was it. And I was in a magazine nobody's heard of, Insidious Reflections. Nobody heard of it at the time, and he gave me the time of day, and he was just, yeah, just a great dude, really good,
Well, he was
good
always like
supporter.
that.
Yeah,
He never blew off, people who wanted to either just talk to him about his work or they wanted to pick his brain for their own work. He was always available. He was a good guy.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. When you look back on the boot camp as well, I mean, I can only imagine, Tommy, you've got so many between all the passionate attendees that you've had, all the dedicated mentors, obviously the staple mentors yourself, Elizabeth Macy, your buddy Paul Wilson, and all the ones in between as well. I mean, do you find when you look back, I mean, are there any specific moments or experiences that kind of stand out for you above all the rest? Maybe those shining moments that you're like, thought, yeah, that's exactly why we did it, or is it all so blended because there's so many of those? I don't know if I'm asking you for Mission Impossible here.
Well, early on, we would have this 3-day series of exercises plus the roundtable boot critiques. We would on Friday night we would give them an assignment, and we had various shticks that we would use, that they had to write something over the weekend, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes we would call it, well, at least I have the first line. Okay, that was one of them. And another one was, a likely story, and we would give them a silly plot idea, or something. Or sometimes we would give them the first line of a famous work, right?
Okay.
Like the first line of Fahrenheit 451, or the first line of some Hemingway thing. So
Sure.
we would switch it up, and then they would get their assignment Friday night, and a lot of people would get to work on it that night after the first Friday night exercise. Our Friday night exercise was always called the bookstore browser, and we had them all send in like the first page or so of anything they'd ever written, and then we had a reader who would start to read the first couple of paragraphs, and we would tell them, okay, you're in a bookstore, you pull a book off the shelf, you start reading the first couple of paragraphs, raise your hand when you know whether you would buy that or you would put it back on the shelf, right? So, and the exercise was all about how important it is to catch an editor's attention when you submit your work, because if you don't pull them in quick, you're done. You're getting a rejection slip. And it was amazing how that opened so many eyes. They had no idea how important that was, especially if you're a new writer and you're submitting work to an editor that has no idea who you are. It's imperative. It's like DEFCON 5. You got to get their attention, okay? Or it's just not going to happen.
You're just part of the stack
we would do that exercise, and then we'd go through the whole Saturday. It was like an 8-hour roundtable of critiques from all the different instructors, and they'd come out of that like, they had their dick in their ringer, all day. I mean, it was like, they were worn down to,
probably felt worse than that even.
Yeah. But
and
what would happen inevitably, Rick, Sunday morning when they would turn in their weekend assignment, the quality of the writing was quantum leap stuff. I mean, in so many ways. I remember one time we went through 4 or 5 stories that morning. We were reading them out loud, and David Morrell stood up and he said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this," because and David is not that effusive. I don't know if you know him. he's
I've seen
very
him in some
low.
panels, but I don't know him too well.
He's very low key, and he was like stunned. He was like, he said, "This is transformative," but uh, the things that they absorbed in just 48 hours was kind of amazing. But the funniest part was, so many of them had started their stories on Friday night, their assignment. Once they went through the grinder on Saturday, they threw that out. And they started over, with all the stuff they had absorbed, during the day and the previous night. And that was, if anything stands out to me about our boot camp experience, it's that those Sunday mornings where you saw these big leaps in understanding, and it happened a lot. I mean, the first couple of years, it was happening. We were kind of shocked by it, and then as the years went by, we almost expected it, because you know what I mean? Because whatever little series of techniques and processes we had evolved to teach them in a 48-hour window, we were seeing the effects of it. It was amazing.
That is incredible. I mean, that must be, and it's interesting that you would do that on a Sunday, because it must have very much felt like a religious experience for them in some way, like they were reborn, or that you resurrected this thing that was maybe inside of them all this time, and they didn't even know it was there. They didn't, I don't know, I can come up with all kinds of euphemisms, spirit of the writing or what have you, but that's got to be incredible for them to finally realize, eyes wide open, all of a sudden thinking, wow, I actually have it in me to write a great story. I just wasn't connecting the proper techniques.
There's an element of validation there that some of them never had. And a lot, Rick, you'd be amazed. At least half the people that came through boot camp had said, this is the first time anybody else has ever read anything I've written. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, they were working in these vacuums, these cocoons of solitude, and some of them, and and we had our instructors, and a lot of them were fairly well-known writers, were reading their samples, their writing samples, and they're like, I can't believe Peter Straub read my story out loud. I mean, stuff like, these people were just blown away by the accessibility, the intimacy, the all the barriers are down, and we're just there for writing.